The stars looked different from the observation deck of the New Horizon research station. Dr. Jake Morrison pressed his hand against the thick glass window and watched the swirling colors of the gas giant below. The planet was beautiful in a way that Earth's oceans could never be. With storms that stretched across continents and winds that could tear apart mountains, Jake had been studying alien life forms for 3 years now. But he had never seen anything like what the sensors were picking up today. Something was moving through space toward their station, and it was not human. "Jake, you need to see this," called Linda Hayes from across the research lab. She was the station's chief engineer, a woman who could fix anything with metal and circuits. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and worry that made Jake's stomach tighten. He walked over to where Linda stood in front of the main computer screen. The display showed a ship unlike anything in human databases. It was long and curved, almost like a dolphin made of crystal and silver. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed to follow some unknown rhythm. "How long until it reaches us?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. 20 minutes, maybe less," Linda replied. "Bobby is already at the weapons station, and Amy is trying to figure out their technology. But Jake, I don't think they're here to fight us." Bobby Chen looked up from the security console, where he monitored the station's defenses. He was young for a security officer, but his quick thinking had saved the station from asteroid impacts twice in the past year. "Their ship isn't showing any weapon signatures," he said. "No energy buildups, no targeting systems active. If they wanted to hurt us, they would have done it already." Dr. Amy Foster stood at the physics station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she analyzed the alien vessel. She was the smartest person Jake had ever met. Someone who could understand the deepest secrets of the universe and explain them in words that anyone could follow. "Their energy patterns are incredible," she said without looking up. "They're using some kind of crystalline power source that I've never seen before." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Open a communication channel," he said. Linda's hands froze over the controls. "Jake, are you sure about this? We should contact Earth first, get instructions from command." "Earth is 6 months away by fastest ship," Jake replied. "By the time we get orders, whatever's going to happen will have already happened. We're the first humans to meet aliens. We have to make this choice ourselves." The alien ship moved closer, its crystal surface reflecting the light from the gas giant below. Jake could see smaller details now, curved sections that might be windows or sensors, and what looked like docking ports along the sides. "Communication channel open," Linda announced, her voice tight with nervous energy. Jake took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "This is Dr. Jake Morrison of the Human Research Station New Horizon. We see your ship, and we are not hostile. Can you understand us?" For long seconds, nothing happened. Then the speakers crackled with a sound like water flowing over smooth stones. Mixed with musical tones that seemed to carry meaning beyond words, Amy's eyes widened as she watched her instruments. "Jake, they're doing something to our communication system. Not attacking it, but changing it somehow." The strange sounds continued for another minute, then suddenly stopped. When the speakers came alive again, the voice that emerged was clearly artificial, but the words were perfect English. "Greetings. Human Jake Morrison. I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian exploration vessel. Stellar Wind, we have been observing your species for some time and have decided to make contact. We mean no harm to you or your station." Jake felt his heart hammering in his chest. Contact with an alien species, and he was the one making it happen. "Commander Veltar, we welcome you. This is an honor for our species. Would you like to meet in person?" There was a pause, filled with more of the flowing, musical sounds. Jake realized the aliens were talking among themselves in their own language. "We would be pleased to meet," Commander Veltar's translated voice finally said. "However, our environmental needs are different from yours. We will need to use our atmospheric suits. May we dock with your station?" "Of course," Jake replied. "Linda, prepare docking bay 2 for an alien vessel." Linda's hands moved quickly over her controls, preparing the docking systems for a ship design they had never seen before. Jake, what if their ship doesn't fit our docking clamps? What if their atmosphere is poisonous? What if? Then we'll figure it out, Jake said simply. This is why we're out here, Linda. To discover new things, meet new people, even if those people aren't human. The alien ship moved with impossible grace, sliding through space like it was swimming through water. Jake watched through the observation windows as it approached the docking bay. The ship was even more beautiful up close, its crystal surface seeming to pulse with inner light. Docking sequence complete, Linda announced. Their ship sealed perfectly with our airlock. However it happened, their technology knew exactly how to connect with ours. Jake straightened his uniform and checked his appearance in the reflection of a computer screen. He was about to become the first human to shake hands with an alien, and he wanted to look presentable for the history books. Jake, wait, Amy called out. I'm getting some strange readings from the long-range sensors. There's something else out there. Something big moving through the asteroid belt. Jake paused at the door to the docking bay. Can you identify it? Amy's face went pale as she studied her instruments. It's huge, Jake, bigger than anything we've ever seen. And it's headed this way. Before Jake could respond, the docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss of equalizing air pressure. What emerged from the alien ship looked like nothing Jake had ever imagined. Commander Veltar stood about as tall as a human, but his body was sleek and curved like a dolphin's. His skin was a pale blue-green color that seemed to shimmer in the way. Station's lights. He wore what looked like a transparent suit filled with water, and Jake could see gills moving along the sides of his neck. His eyes were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that was unmistakably real. Dr. Jake Morrison, Commander Veltar said, his voice coming from a device attached to his suit. It is an honor to meet the first human face-to-face.
Hey!
Stepped forward and extended his hand, a gesture that the aliens seemed to understand. Commander Veltar reached out with what looked like a flipper, but had distinct finger-like appendages, and they shook hands across the gap between species. The honor is ours, Commander, Jake said. Welcome to New Horizon. But even as they spoke, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Amy's voice cut through the noise from the research lab. Jake, you need to get back here now. That thing. In the asteroid belt, it's not a ship. It's alive, and it's coming straight for us. Commander Veltar's large eyes widened with what Jake could only describe as terror. Void Devourer, the alien whispered. We must flee immediately. Your station, your people, none of you are safe. Jake looked back at his team, then at the alien commander who had traveled across space to meet them. In that moment, he made another decision that would define not just his own fate, but the future relationship between humanity and the stars. We don't run, Jake said quietly. We protect what's ours. The aliens stared at him with those dark, intelligent eyes, and Jake could see that Commander Veltar was trying to understand something completely foreign to his experience. The concept of standing and fighting instead of fleeing was as alien to the Zephyrians as their crystal ships were to humans. Outside the station, something vast and hungry was approaching through the darkness between worlds. The thing that came out of the asteroid belt was a nightmare made real. Jake Morrison stood at the observation window with Commander Veltar, watching as the creature moved through space toward their station. It was massive, bigger than any ship humans had ever built, stretching over 2 kilometers from end to end. The Void Devourer looked like someone had taken the worst parts of a deep-sea monster and mixed them with broken metal and crackling electricity. Its body was covered in what appeared to be living armor made of dark metal that pulsed with veins of blue energy. Tentacles as thick as subway trains writhed from its front end, each one tipped with sensors that glowed like evil eyes in the darkness. Your people must evacuate immediately, Commander Veltar said, his translated voice carrying urgent fear. The Void Devourer feeds on energy and metal. It will consume your station and everyone inside it. Jake watched the creature approach and felt something cold settle in his stomach. But alongside the fear was something else, something that made him stand straighter instead of backing away from the window.
Oh.
How do we fight it? Jake asked. Commander Veltar's large eyes widened in shock. Fight it? Dr. Morrison, you do not understand. No one fights a void devourer. They are forces of nature, like your hurricanes or earthquakes. You do not fight them. You flee from them. We can't flee fast enough, Jake said, pointing at the creature as it drew closer. Our ships are too slow, and we have civilians on this station. Someone has to try something. Amy Foster ran into the observation area, her face flushed with panic and determination. Jake, I've been analyzing the creature's energy patterns. It's like nothing in our databases, but I think I understand how it feeds. Tell me, Jake said, turning away from the window. It drains power from anything it touches, Amy explained quickly. The tentacles are like giant electrical cables. When they make contact with a ship or station, they suck out all the energy. That's how it kills its prey. Linda Hayes appeared at Amy's shoulder, carrying a tablet full of technical readouts. I've been checking our defenses. The electromagnetic barriers might slow it down, but they won't stop it. Our weapons are designed for fighting ships, not creatures. Bobby Chen jogged over from the security station, his face grim but focused. I've armed every weapon we have, but Linda's right. Our plasma cannons might scratch that thing, but they won't kill it. Commander Veltar listened to the humans discussing their situation with growing amazement. You are truly planning to fight it, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian civilization, no one has ever attempted such a thing. Then maybe it's time someone tried, Jake said simply. The station shuddered as the void devourer's approach began to affect their systems. Lights flickered, and the air recycling system made strange noises. Through the observation window, Jake could see the creature's tentacles reaching out toward them like the arms of some cosmic octopus. It's starting to drain our power, Linda announced, reading from her tablet. At this rate, we'll lose life support in 30 minutes. Jake's mind raced through possibilities. Running was not an option. Their evacuation ships were too slow. And they had 23 people on the station, including researchers, engineers, and support staff. Even if they could get everyone to the escape pods, the Void Devourer would catch them before they reached minimum safe distance. Amy, what happens? If we overload the fusion reactor, Jake asked. Amy's face went pale. Jake, you can't be serious. If we destabilize the reactor, the explosion would destroy the station and everything within 50 kilometers, including the Void Devourer, Jake pressed. Maybe, Amy said slowly, but it would also kill all of us. Commander Veltar made a sound, like water bubbling over rocks, which Jake was beginning to recognize as Zephyrian distress. Dr. Morrison, you cannot sacrifice your entire station. Surely some of your people could escape. Not all of them, Jake said firmly. And we don't leave people behind. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Several computer screens flickered and went dark. The Void Devourer was close enough now that Jake could see individual details on its surface. The creature's hide was covered in what looked like scars from ancient battles, and its tentacles moved with a terrible intelligence. There might be another way, Amy said suddenly. The creature feeds on energy, right? What if we could hurt its feeding system instead of trying to destroy the whole thing? Jake turned to her with hope in his eyes. How? Those tentacles are its sensory organs, Amy explained, pointing at the creature through the window. If we could damage them, maybe we could confuse it enough that it would look for easier prey. Linda was already thinking like an engineer. Could use the maintenance tunnels to get close to where it attaches to the station. Plant some explosive charges right on the tentacles themselves. That's suicide, Bobby said bluntly. Whoever goes out there would be right next to that thing. Not if we coordinate it properly, Jake said, his mind forming a plan. Amy, can you rig the reactor to create a controlled overload? Not big enough to destroy the station, but large enough to hurt the creature if it's feeding from us. It's possible, Amy said slowly, but the timing would have to be perfect. Too early and the creature escapes. Too late and it drains too much power to be stopped. Commander Veltar watched the humans plan their impossible attack with growing fascination. Dr. Morrison, why do you not simply abandon the station? Your lives are more valuable than metal. And circuits? Jake looked at the alien commander with surprise. because this is our home. These people are our responsibility. We don't abandon our home, and we don't abandon our people. The concept seemed to puzzle Commander Veltar deeply. But surely survival is more important than territory? Not to us, Jake said simply. The Void Devourer's first tentacle struck the station's outer hull with a sound like thunder. The lights went out completely for a moment, then came back on emergency power. Jake could feel the station's structure, groaning under the stress. That's it, Linda announced. It's starting to feed. We have maybe 15 minutes before it drains enough power to shut down life support. Jake made his decision. Bobby, Linda, I need you to create diversions. Draw the creature's attention away from the main feeding area. Amy, get to the reactor room and prepare for a controlled overload on my signal. What about you? Amy asked, though Jake could see in her eyes that she already knew the answer. I'm going to plant charges on those tentacles, Jake said. Someone has to get close enough to damage its sensors. Jake! No, Linda said. Let me go. I know the station's layout better than anyone. I'll go, Bobby offered. I have military training. Jake shook his head. I'm the ranking officer, and this was my decision. I go. Commander Veltar watched this exchange with something approaching awe. You would sacrifice yourself for the others. If necessary, Jake said, checking his environmental suit. But I'd rather we all survive this. The Void Devourer's feeding. Tentacles burrowed deeper into the station's hull. Jake could hear the metal groaning and see sparks flying from damaged power conduits. The creature was inside their home now, and there was no going back. Positions everyone, Jake said. Let's show this thing what humans do when something threatens our family. As Jake prepared to enter the maintenance tunnels that would take him toward the creature, he caught Commander Veltar staring at him with those large, dark eyes. The alien was trying to understand something that went against everything his species had learned about survival. Why? Commander Veltar asked simply. Because someone has to, Jake replied, and disappeared into the tunnels toward the monster that was eating his home. Jake Morrison crawled through the maintenance tunnel with explosive charges strapped to his back and death waiting at the other end. The metal walls around him groaned and sparked as the Void Devourer's tentacles drained power from the stations. Systems, emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows that danced like ghosts in the narrow space behind him. Through the communication system built into his environmental suit, he could hear his team coordinating their desperate plan. Linda's voice crackled through the static as she rerouted power to create electromagnetic barriers. Bobby was setting up diversions to draw the creature's attention away from Jake's position. Amy was in the reactor room, her fingers dancing over controls that could save them all or kill them instantly. But it was Commander Veltar's voice that fascinated Jake the most. The alien was speaking rapidly in his own language to his crew aboard the Stellar Wind. And even through the translation device, Jake could hear the amazement and confusion in his tone. Dr. Cathara, Commander Veltar, was saying to someone on his ship, "Are you recording all of this? The humans are actually approaching the Void Devourer instead of fleeing from it." Jake paused in his crawling to listen. Through his suit's external microphones, he could hear the response from the Zephyrian ship. "Commander, I have never seen behavior like this in any intelligent species," came Dr. Kethera's translated voice. "According to our biological databases, humans evolved from persistence hunters on their homeworld. But this level of aggressive behavior toward a superior predator should have been eliminated by natural selection millions of years ago." Less Commander Veltar replied slowly, "It was not eliminated because it works." Jake smiled grimly inside his helmet and continued crawling toward the section where the Void Devourer's main feeding tentacle had penetrated the station's hull. The creature was so large that its appendages had punched through multiple levels of the station, creating a maze of damaged corridors and exposed conduits. "Jake, what's your position?" Linda's voice asked through his comm system. 2 minutes. "From the target," Jake replied, checking his scanner. "How are our power levels?" "Not good," Amy's voice cut in from the reactor room. "The creature is draining energy faster than our generators can produce it. I estimate 8 minutes before we lose life support completely." Jake could see light ahead now, not the familiar glow of the station's lighting, but the eerie blue radiance that pulsed along the Void Devourer's tentacles. The creature's feeding appendage had broken through the hole just ahead of him, and he could see the massive tube-like structure that was sucking the life out of his home. Target acquired, Jake whispered into his com. Beginning approach. Commander Veltar's voice came through the communication channel, speaking directly to Jake now. Dr. Morrison, please reconsider. Even if you damage one tentacle, the creature has dozens of others. Your sacrifice will accomplish nothing. Jake emerged from the maintenance tunnel into a damaged section of the station's outer ring. The Void Devourer's tentacles stretched across the entire space, as thick as a subway car and covered in the same biometallic hide as the rest of the creature. Energy flowed visibly along its surface, stolen power from the station's systems feeding the monster's endless hunger. Maybe, Jake said, carefully approaching the tentacle with his explosive charges, but someone has to try. What Jake saw next made him understand why the Zephyrians feared these creatures so much. The tentacle was not just draining electrical power. It was also consuming the metal of the station itself, breaking down the hull, plating at the molecular level, and absorbing it into the creature's body. Where the tentacle touched the station's walls, the metal was slowly dissolving like sugar in water. Amy, you need to see this, Jake said, activating his suit's camera. To broadcast what he was seeing, the creature doesn't just eat energy, it's consuming the station itself. Amy's voice came back tight with new understanding. That's how it grows so large. It feeds on both energy and matter, converting everything into its own body mass. Gate. If it finishes feeding on our station, it will be even harder to stop. Jake carefully placed his first explosive charge on the tentacle's surface. The biometallic hide felt warm even through his gloves, and he could sense vibrations running through it like a massive heartbeat. The creature was alive in a way that defied human understanding, a living ship that traveled between stars, consuming everything in its path. Charge 1 placed, Jake reported. Jake, be careful, Bobby's voice warned through the com. I'm seeing movement on the sensors. The creature is extending more tentacles toward your position. Jake looked up to see 3 smaller appendages snaking through the damaged hole toward him. Each one was only as thick as a human arm, but they moved with predatory intelligence, searching for the source of the disturbance near their larger cousin. I see them, Jake said, pulling out his sidearm. The plasma pistol was designed for human-sized threats, but it might be enough to discourage the creature's smaller feeding tubes. Commander Veltar's voice cut through the static, speaking to his crew. Look at his behavior patterns. The human is not showing fear responses. His heart rate is elevated, but his movements remain controlled and purposeful. This is not panic. This is calculated aggression. Jake fired his plasma pistol. At the nearest searching tentacle, the energy bolt struck the biometallic surface and left a small burn mark, but the tentacle recoiled as if in pain. The creature could be hurt. It worked, Jake said with satisfaction. The plasma burns it. Dr. Cathara's voice came through. The cum system, as the Zephyrian scientist observed Jake's actions. Commander, I am beginning to understand something disturbing about human psychology. This individual is not acting despite his fear. He's acting because of it. Fear is making him more dangerous, not less. Jake moved to position his second explosive charge, keeping his plasma pistol ready as the smaller tentacles continued to probe toward his location. The main feeding appendage pulsed with increasing energy flow as the Void Devourer sensed the threat to its feeding process. Humans do not flee when cornered, Commander Veltar said slowly, as if working out a difficult puzzle. They attack. That's right, Jake said, overhearing the alien's comment. We call it fighting back. Linda's voice crackled through the cum with urgency. Jake, the creature is extending more tentacles toward your section. I count at least 6. Major appendages heading your way. Jake looked around the damaged compartment and saw that she was right. The Void Devourer was bringing more of its feeding apparatus to bear on the station, responding to the damage he had inflicted on its sensory equipment. The creature was learning, adapting to the threat he represented. Amy, how long do you need to prepare the reactor overload? Jake asked. 3 more minutes, came Amy's strained reply. But Jake, if you're still in that section when I trigger it, the energy discharge will kill you instantly. Jake placed his second explosive charge and checked his remaining supplies. He had 4 more charges, enough to damage several tentacles if he could reach them in time. But the creature was moving faster now, bringing more of its bulk against the station as it recognized the danger. "Bobby, Linda, I need those diversions." "Now," Jake said. Immediately, the station's remaining defensive systems came online. Plasma cannons fired at the creature's main body, their energy bolts creating bright flashes against its armored hide. The attacks did little damage, but they drew the Void Devourer's attention away from Jake's position. Commander Veltar watched the coordinated human response with growing amazement. "They are not just fighting as individuals," he told his crew. "They are fighting as a pack. One human draws the predator's attention while another attacks its weak points." Jake used the distraction to reach a third tentacle, this one smaller but covered in what looked like sensory organs. He placed another explosive charge and immediately saw the creature's reaction. The main body of the Void Devourer shifted position, and several tentacles began searching more actively for his location. "It knows I'm here," Jake reported. "The creature is learning to track me." Dr. Cathara's voice carried a note of scientific excitement despite the danger. "Commander, we may be witnessing the first successful resistance to a Void Devourer in galactic history. The humans are demonstrating tactical behaviors that no prey species has ever exhibited." "We're not prey," Jake said grimly, moving toward his 4th target. "We're hunters, too." Jake Morrison reached the Void Devourer's main sensory cluster and realized he was looking at something that had never been seen before by any living being. The creature's primary feeding organ was a writhing mass of tentacles, each one covered in thousands of biomechanical sensors that glowed with stolen energy. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like looking into the heart of a star made of living metal. The cluster was larger than Jake had expected. Stretching across 3 levels of the damaged station, tentacles as thick as trees twisted around each other, creating a complex web of feeding tubes and sensory organs. Energy flowed through them like blood through veins, pulsing with the rhythm of the creature's alien heartbeat. "Amy, can you see this?" Jake asked, making sure his suit's camera was recording everything. Amy's voice came back, filled with scientific wonder, despite their desperate situation. "Jake, what you're looking at is probably the most complex biological system ever discovered. Those sensors can detect energy signatures from across solar systems. That's how the creature finds its prey." Jake pulled out his remaining explosive charges and began placing them carefully on the largest tentacles. Each charge had to be positioned exactly right to damage the creature's sensory network without killing him in the explosion. "Charges 4 and 5 placed," Jake reported, moving to the center of the cluster. Commander Veltarez's voice cut through the comm system, speaking to his crew with amazement. "Dr. Cathara, the human is placing explosives directly on the creature's most sensitive organs. This is not just courage. This is tactical brilliance." Dr. Cathara responded with equal amazement. "Commander, I have run the calculations. Human's plan has a 12% chance of success. By Zephyrian standards, those odds would be considered impossible." Yet he continues. 12% is better than 0%, Jake said, overhearing their conversation as he worked his way deeper into the sensory cluster. The Void Devourer began to respond to Jake's presence among its most vital organs. The tentacles around him started moving faster, and smaller feeding tubes emerged from the walls to search for the source of the disturbance. Jake found himself surrounded by writhing alien flesh that pulsed with stolen energy from his home. "Jake, your life signs are spiking," Linda's voice warned through the comm. "Are you okay?" Jake looked around at the maze of tentacles surrounding him and realized he was trapped. The creature had closed its sensory organs around him like a living cage. He could see the station's hull through gaps in the tentacle web, but the path back to the maintenance tunnels was blocked. "I'm trapped," Jake said calmly, "but I'm in position to place the final charges." Amy's voice came through the comm, tight with emotion. "Jake, if you're trapped in there when I trigger the reactor overload, there's no way you'll survive the energy discharge." Jake looked at his remaining explosive charges and made a calculation that would define everything that came after. Had 2 charges left, enough to severely damage the creature's sensory network if placed correctly. But getting them in position would require him to go deeper into the tentacle cluster, farther from any chance of escape. "Amy, how much time do you need to prepare the reactor?" Jake asked. 2 minutes, Amy replied. "But Jake, you need to get out of there. The creature is adapting to your presence. It's learning to track you." Jake could see that Amy was right. The smaller tentacles were moving with increasing coordination, searching for him with purpose rather than random movement. The Void Devourer was intelligent, and it was beginning to understand that something was attacking its vital systems. "Commander Veltar," Jake said, addressing the alien directly. "I need you to do something for me." "What is it, Dr. Morrison?" the Zephyrian commander replied. "If I don't make it out of here, I need you to tell people what happened. Tell them that humans don't give up. Tell them we fight for each other, even when the odds are impossible." Commander Veltar's translated voice carried confusion. "Dr. Morrison, why are you speaking as if you will not survive? You could still escape." Jake placed his 6th explosive charge on a tentacle covered in primary sensory organs. The biometallic surface felt warm and alive under his hands, pulsing with the rhythm of the creature's alien life. Because someone has to make sure this works. Someone has to get close enough to guarantee the damage. Dr. Cathara's voice cut through the cum with scientific fascination. "Commander, the human is choosing certain death to increase the probability of success for his companions. This behavior makes no sense from a survival perspective." "It makes perfect sense," Jake said, working his way toward the heart of the sensory cluster. "My friends are more important than my life." Bobby's voice crackled through the static, tight with emotion. "We can find another way. Don't do this." "There is no other way," Jake replied, reaching the center of the tentacle. Web. Here the creature's main sensory organ pulsed with energy from across the station. It was the size of a small room, covered in thousands of receptors that could detect the smallest energy signature from vast distances. Jake placed his final explosive charge directly on the main sensor and activated the timer. He had 90 seconds before the charges would detonate, hopefully damaging the creature's ability to hunt and feed. "All charges placed and armed," Jake reported. "Amy, trigger the reactor overload in 90 seconds. Amy's voice came back, choked with tears. "Jake, please try to get out. We can wait longer." "No," Jake said firmly. "The creature is learning too fast. If we wait, it might figure out how to defend itself." "Do it in 90 seconds. "Exactly, Commander." Veltar spoke to his crew in rapid Zephyrian, his voice filled with something Jake had never heard from the alien before. When the translation came through, Jake realized it was respect. "All Zephyrian vessels, record this moment. We are witnessing something that will change our understanding of intelligent life. The human is sacrificing himself, not from desperation, but from tactical calculation. He is choosing the death of one to ensure the survival of many." Jake tried to find a way out of the tentacle web, but the creature had sealed all the passages. The Void Devourer's sensory organs pressed in around him, and he could feel the heat of the alien flesh through his environmental suit. Small feeding tubes began to probe at his suit seals, testing for weaknesses. 60 seconds, Jake announced. Checking his chronometer, Linda's voice came through the cum with desperate urgency. "Jake, I'm reading massive energy buildups around your position. Creature is preparing to drain power directly from your suit." Jake felt the first tentacle pierce his suit's outer layer. Emergency seals activated, but he knew they wouldn't hold long against the creature's feeding apparatus. The Void Devourer had recognized him as a threat and was preparing to consume him directly. 30 seconds, Jake said, his voice steady despite the alien tentacles pressing against his suit. Amy's voice cracked with emotion. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I wish there was another way." "There isn't," Jake replied, watching as more tentacles began to probe his suit's defenses. "But Amy, this is going to work. I can feel it. The creature is vulnerable here." Commander Veltar's voice cut through the cum with something that sounded like awe. "Dr. Morrison, your species is remarkable. In 3,000 years, no Zephyrian has ever shown such courage. We're not braver than you," Jake said as his suit seals began to fail. "We just can't live with ourselves if we don't try." The explosive charges detonated exactly on schedule, sending waves of destruction through the Void Devourer's sensory cluster. Jake felt the creature's tentacles convulse around him as pain signals raced through its nervous system. The alien flesh that had been pressing against his suit suddenly pulled away as the creature recoiled from the unexpected agony. At the same moment, Amy triggered the reactor overload. The station's fusion core released a controlled burst of energy that raced through the power conduits and struck the wounded creature like a bolt of lightning. The Void Devourer's feeding tentacles, already damaged by Jake's explosives, couldn't handle the sudden surge of power. Jake felt the creature's grip on him loosen as it pulled away from the station, wounded and confused. For the first time in its existence, the Void Devourer had been hurt by its prey. And the experience was so alien to its nature that it didn't know how to respond as the creature retreated into space. Jake Morrison found himself floating in the damaged section of the station, his suit's emergency systems keeping him alive. Against all odds, he had survived the explosion that should have killed him. Amy's voice came through the com, filled with joy and disbelief. Alive? Jake Morrison floated in the damaged section of the station, his environmental suit keeping him alive in the vacuum where the Void Devourer had torn through the hull. Through his helmet's visor, he could see the creature retreating into deep space, its massive form moving away from the station for the first time since the attack began. The Void Devourer was wounded. Jake could see damage along its tentacles where his explosives had torn through the sensory organs. Blue energy leaked from the wounds like alien blood, and the creature's movement was unsteady. No longer the confident approach of an apex predator, but the careful retreat of something that had learned fear. Jake, hold on, Bobby's voice crackled. Through the cum system. We're coming to get you. Within minutes, Jake found himself back inside the station's pressurized sections, surrounded by his team and Commander Veltar. The alien stood close by, his large dark eyes studying Jake with something that looked like wonder. The creature is leaving, Linda reported from her engineering station. Long-range sensors show it's heading back toward the asteroid belt, moving away from inhabited systems. Amy looked up from her physics console, her face still pale from the stress of the reactor overload. Jake, what you did in there was impossible. The explosion should have killed you instantly. Jake removed his helmet and ran a hand through his hair. The creature pulled away when the charges went off. It was in so much pain from the damaged sensors that it released me before the reactor surge hit. Commander Veltar moved closer, his water-filled suit making soft gurgling sounds as he walked. Dr. Morrison, in 3,000 years of recorded galactic history, no one has ever wounded a Void Devourer and survived to tell about it. Your species has accomplished something that was thought impossible. Jake looked around at his team, all of whom were staring at him with expressions of relief and amazement. We accomplished it. Linda kept the systems running, Bobby created the diversions, Amy handled the reactor. I just placed some explosives. Dr. Cathera's voice came through the communication system from the Zephyrian ship. Commander, we have been analyzing the encounter data. The humans demonstrated tactical coordination, individual sacrifice for group benefit, and aggressive behavior toward a superior predator. These traits should not exist together in an intelligent species. Commander Veltar's translated voice carried a note of understanding, unless they evolved not as prey animals but as pack hunters. Dr. Cathera, I believe we have discovered something remarkable about human evolution. Jake sat down heavily in a chair, the exhaustion of the battle finally hitting him. Commander, what exactly is a Void Devourer? Where do they come from? Commander Veltar's body posture shifted to what Jake was learning to recognize as a teaching position among Zephyrians. They are ancient creatures, Dr. Morrison, perhaps older than any civilization in the galaxy. They travel between star systems, feeding on energy and metal. Most species learn to detect them early and flee to other systems until the creatures move on. Most species run, Jake said slowly, but we fought. Yes, Commander Veltar replied, and that changes everything. Linda looked up from her damage reports. Jake, we're getting communication requests from Earth Command. Word is already spreading about what happened here, Amy added. The Zephyrian ship has been broadcasting data. About the encounter to their home world? Jake, I think you've started something bigger than just first contact. Commander Veltar confirmed Amy's observation. Dr. Morrison, the Zephyrian Council is already discussing the implications of your species' behavior. For the first time in our history, we are considering the possibility that the Void Devourers are not unstoppable forces of nature. Jake stood up and walked to the observation window. The Void Devourer was just a distant speck now, still leaking energy from its wounds as it fled toward deep space. The creature that had terrorized entire civilizations for thousands of years was running away from a human research station. What happens now? Jake asked. Commander Veltar joined him at the window. Dr. Morrison, everything changes. The Zephyrian Council wishes to propose a formal alliance with humanity. We offer our technology, our knowledge of the galaxy, and our peaceful nature. In return, we ask for something we have never had. What's that? Jake asked. Protection, Commander Veltar said simply. For 3,000 years we have survived by hiding, by running, by avoiding conflict. But you have shown us that there is another way. You have shown us that predators can be fought and defeated. Bobby looked up from the security station with interest. You want humans to help defend your worlds? Dr. Cathera's voice came through. The CUM system with scientific excitement? Tactical applications are extraordinary. Human aggressive instincts combined with Zephyrian? Technology could create defensive capabilities that have never existed in galactic history, Jake thought. About the implications, you're talking about changing the entire balance of power in the galaxy. If civilizations don't have to run from the Void Devourers anymore, they could expand, explore, build in systems that were previously too dangerous. Exactly, Commander Veltar confirmed. Dr. Morrison, your species could be the key to a new era of galactic civilization. One where intelligent beings do not have to live in fear of cosmic predators. Amy was already thinking like a scientist. We would need to study the creatures, understand their biology and behavior patterns. One wounded Void Devourer doesn't mean we can fight all of them. Linda nodded in agreement. And we'd need better weapons, designed specifically for creatures. Like this, our current systems barely scratched it. Commander Veltar's posture shifted to something Jake recognized as enthusiasm. The Zephyrian crystalline technology could be adapted to create weapons far more effective than your current plasma systems. Combined with human tactical thinking, the possibilities are remarkable. Jake looked around at his team, seeing the same mixture of excitement and determination in their faces that he felt himself. What about the other species in the galaxy? How will they react to humans suddenly becoming the galaxy's monster hunters? Dr. Cathara answered from the Zephyrian ship. Most will be grateful, Dr. Morrison. There are dozens of intelligent species that have been driven from their home systems by Void Devourers. Entire civilizations that exist as refugees because they had to flee from creatures like the one you wounded today. Commander Veltar added, some may be concerned about human aggressive capabilities. Your species' willingness to fight could be seen as threatening by more peaceful civilizations. Jake considered this. Then we'll have to prove that we only fight to protect, not to conquer. That we use our strength to defend those who can't defend themselves. Bobby grinned from his position at the security console. So we're going from a research station to a monster-fighting organization? It's not just us, Jake said, looking out at the stars. All of humanity. This changes everything for our species, too. We're not just exploring the galaxy anymore. Becoming its protectors. Amy pulled up star charts on her console, already thinking ahead. If we're going to do this right, we'll need to map Void Devourer migration patterns, identify vulnerable systems, develop new technologies. Linda was studying the damage reports from their encounter, as well need to build ships designed for fighting these creatures, space stations that can withstand their attacks. Commander Veltar watched the humans planning their new role in galactic civilization with obvious admiration. Dr. Morrison, there is something else you should know. The Void Devourer you wounded today will remember what happened here. It will avoid human ships and stations in the future. Good, Jake said firmly. Maybe it will tell other Void Devourers to avoid us too. Dr. Cathera's voice carried a note of scientific wonder. Commander, we may be witnessing the birth of the first apex predator civilization in galactic history. A species intelligent enough to use technology, but aggressive enough to hunt cosmic predators. Jake looked at his reflection in the observation window, seeing not just a human scientist, but the representative of a species that had just changed its destiny. Commander Veltar, send a message to your council. Tell them humanity accepts their alliance. Tell them we're ready to stand guard. Commander Veltar's body language shifted to what Jake now recognized as deep respect. It will be my honor, Dr. Morrison. Today, you have given hope to civilizations that have lived in fear for our thousands of years. As the Zephyrian ship prepared to depart with news of the alliance, Jake Morrison stood with his team and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient predators that had terrorized the galaxy were about to learn that they were no longer the only hunters in the darkness. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as explorers or diplomats, but as the guardians who would stand between the innocent and the monsters that haunted the void.